All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. As people who listen to the show regularly know, the focus on the podcast is local Manitoba musicians, but also uh, Manitoba and music scene adjacent people who are, maybe they are still musicians, but they do other things. Like we've had shows on posters and music photography and behind the scenes kind of stuff like that. And on this episode, we're talking to someone who is I think, a fairly well known name and face in the local music community. But you're doing something that's a little bit different than what you were doing maybe a few years ago, more regularly. So I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what you're up to now, because I think people know you, but they might not know you for this particular project.
Right. Um, yes. Well, my name is Brent Jackson. I'm the owner operator of Old Gold Vintage Vinyl, which is a small boutique record shop here in Winnipeg in Osborne Village, 187 Osborne in specific. We've been there since about mid 2018 up till now, and we've moved through a few different phases of the shop, which I can explain a little bit.
Sure.
Started off as I'll just kind of go a little bit further back, I guess. I've been a DJ producer here in the city for a long time, about 20 years or so, and also been collecting and buying records to support that habit and the art form that I love of hip hop music. So after just so many years of collecting and cultivating music, I sort of had to decide what I was going to do with all this stuff. And I sort of noticed a few holes, I guess, that I wanted to fill in the local scene for music collectors and passionate people who wanted music that wasn't, I don't know, just Metallica or Neil Young.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I was sort of
just sorry to interrupt here for a second, but I mean, even before you had the store, you were always at a lot of events selling vinyl. Like I know I bought records off you, over the years at various pop-up record shows and things like that. So this is that whole idea of selling interesting stuff, maybe whether it's from your collection or elsewhere. That's been a thing for a while now.
Yeah, I always wanted to be the guy with the most interesting booth at all the record fairs and stuff. So yeah, I started basically doing the record shows here in Winnipeg a very long time ago. Yeah, 20 years, which sounds kind of crazy to say now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they had these biannual record fairs here in Winnipeg, and I was always sort of a fixture there. And then I started a little Instagram-based business called Secret Sauce Records, where I specifically sort of catered to DJs, funk hunters, producers, and that did really well for me. And I made a whole bunch of really great friends and connections, and I get to meet and conversate with some of my hip hop heroes growing up.
Yeah,
calling me for records, which is kind of crazy. But Instagram's cool because it just makes the world so much smaller and easy to kind of meet people that are like-minded. But all that aside, so fast forward a few years ago, where I met Michelle Arcand, who owns Urban Waves, which has been a stable sort of culture lifestyle shop here in the city for over 30 years. She's been fixated in Osborne Village. So if you've ever sort of walked up and down the strip, probably at least seen the big funky shop there with all the t-shirts and incense. It was like a head shop without any music in it, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it for sure. Yeah.
So we kind of clicked, and she invited me to do a pop-up in there. She's like, you want to set up a few things. I was looking at retail space forever, and nothing ever kind of clicked. I was in a full-time job, and before embarking on your business, which you got to live and breathe 24/7.
Yeah,
it just wasn't there yet. And so Michelle invited me in. We started off with 2 little crates on the counter. A couple months go by, it really pops off. People are really responsive to it. They like having a music store in the village, which is sort of essential, like all the kind of connect the dots. You'd think like, why isn't there a record store here?
Well, there's a
And
hole for sure after Music Trader left. That was kind of the missing piece. Yeah.
so, and I was a long time customer of all the record shops in town, like everyone
Yeah.
kind of knew who I was. But so I opened up about 2 months before the later incarnated Into the Music closed down. And then they moved back downtown, and now it's just sitting empty there still. But so I just felt it was kind of really important for some reason. I felt like we have to have a record store in Osborne Village. If no one else is going to do it, then we'll do it. And we sort of slowly evolved the shop. We renovated it 2 or 3 times. I put in new flooring. We painted everything. We built everything from scratch. And basically, it's just, it's where it is, where we want to be right now. It's a beautiful boutique little shop. And if I wasn't me, I'd love to come in there and buy some records and just hang out and see some stuff that you wouldn't see in any other place here in this city, for sure.
Well, and I guess a big part of this growth of this store is that you've been doing this during a pandemic. I mean, it seems like every time I see new things about the shop, you got a new sign. It's grown. There's more space for records, and this has all been happening during a time when stores in general have been struggling. Like, what has that been like, kind of launching this business? And for the bulk of it, you've been dealing with these restrictions and just a very awkward time to start something like that.
It's very stressful. I mean, I'm surprised we made it to where we are now, but we just kind of kept the faith and kept going. They shut us down. They did the retail restrictions last year on November 12th, which is almost a year ago now. And they were like, okay, no one can come in any businesses. That's when they were taping off all the Christmas toys and stuff in Walmart.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't go in any businesses. So yeah, we were operating on curbside pickup, and any way I could get a record to somebody, I would. I was driving all over the city, delivering, $3 records. It was, I just had to do whatever I had to do to keep it going. And it was pretty dark and stressful for a little while, but people kind of kept up, like I had to switch the game up a little bit. I started doing these Instagram videos where we'd show records and stuff. It's a real way to let people know what you have in a store like mine, because all we carry is vintage, old, used items, basically. No new pressings or anything like that. I figured, I looked at it really hard. There's enough places to get new music, right? You can go to Walmart, you can go to any of the record shops in town. They have an incredible selection of new records. You want Adele, you can go to the mall and get Adele. I wanted to sort of focus in on just sort of music that fell between the cracks, or that only certain sort of subsects of the population would know. But then after you open a store, you sort of quickly realize that you need a lot of Billy Joel, you need a lot of Fleetwood Mac, you need a lot of Meatloaf and stuff like that too. So, we're happy to supply that to anyone who's looking to get it, whether they're just coming into it or they've been collecting records for 50 years. I could usually find something for them. But it was pretty wild. I mean, thank God the government was handing out a bunch of money to us, and we qualified for some nice sort of bill paying money. But that all goes pretty quick. They only gave 3 installments or something. So when we were completely locked down, we had the idea, like, let's just do this reno. Let's go all out, because we don't know when we're going to get the chance to actually do this again. And so we just made the decision to push our opening date back a few weeks. And then when we did open, it was -40. It was middle of winter. It was horrible cold, but people were still waiting outside. And God bless them. I love everybody for, having patience. And when we were only allowed 2 or 3 people in at a time, they would hang out. And it was really cool. We didn't have any problems. People were really understanding in that way. They didn't, there was a few odd, crusty, old, grumpy men, but, that goes with any job.
Yeah. I feel that maybe speaks to the passion, though, of the type of clientele you have, right? Because, like you said, you're filling in, putting music out there that falls between the cracks. And usually for some of those subgenres, people are super into it. Like, you're not going to find a casual fan of some of the stuff you're selling. So it makes sense that they would be more than happy to line up just to have the opportunity to go in and dig through some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I did a pretty good, I mean, I'm no professional Instagrammer by any means or anything, but I kind of attribute it all to Instagram. Otherwise, we didn't have an active website.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like that really. So yeah, I had to kind of create a bit of an identity or a place where people could kind of check regularly to see what we were bringing in. And, what better way really now, because everyone sort of just stares at their phone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just sort of tried to take advantage of that and embrace, the situation, but, make the best of it. So
For sure.
that sort of led up to when we reopened this mid or early February or mid-February. And yeah, we just been rolling hard ever since, and full time in the shop, living there every day. And yeah, we have a great partnership with me and Michelle, so we sort of trade off days and stuff. But
cool.
Yeah, if you've come around, you've definitely met one of us for sure.
Right on. So where are you getting these records from? I know at the beginning a lot of it would have been stuff that you'd been collecting over the years, especially when you started out doing shows and things like that. But you got a lot of records in the store. Obviously a bulk of it is probably from your own collection that you've built up, but where are these, like for example the Billy Joel records and things like that? If people want that kind of thing, which maybe isn't something you had a lot of, I'm not sure, originally, like where are you sourcing these? Where are you tracking these down?
It's kind of funny. Well, we buy collections, I have,
okay.
Different avenues of buying those. So people are, we get calls every week, but it's kind of funny because you see the same record collection, like the same 70s and 80s record collection in like 9 out of 10 calls.
Yeah.
So same stuff. And because Winnipeg, well, I guess it probably goes for anywhere in the world really, but the very popular stuff of the 70s, that's what was bought. Like I have an area in my store, which is probably about like this big. It's all Michael Jackson Thriller. I have like 20 copies of Thriller, and there's just some stuff that doesn't sell anymore, But yeah, we got collections. I have partners all over the states that I'm really good with, and we kind of pick things up where you'd never find a copy of the Prairie. Yeah. So yeah, I have different methods. I don't really always spill the sauce and tell my secrets, but yeah, I it's an everyday hustle getting records. There's no stop. I just keep going because you take a day off, there's about 1 million bedroom discog sellers that are looking to take your price, right? And that's fine. Everyone needs the hobby, and you need to keep it going, but yeah, you got to get creative these days to find cool stuff. That's for sure.
Well, I imagine that the whole concept of bedroom discog sellers, it's got to make it easier and harder, right? Because you can find stuff more easily, you find out who's selling it, but then everyone's selling their own stuff, and you have to compete as a brick and mortar store with this kind of, I look at Discogs every day. I don't buy things on it because I get angry about the shipping. I never pull the trigger. But I mean, just if I was the type of person who ordered a lot of stuff online, I could see myself maybe doing that rather than going to physical stores, and it's got to be a weird situation to compete.
Well, in the beginning, it was sort of odd because I felt like I was competing with my own customers. It's like, man, like these people, I would see guys come in and they stare at their phones the whole time while they're looking at records and checking up prices, see if they could make a profit on it, and I knew they were resellers or whatever, and I, whatever, that's part of the game. But then little old ladies started coming in with their Discogs pages and stuff, and so Discogs is turning into this more normalized platform of collecting music. Like it's every walk of life uses it now, or at least they log their collections on it and stuff like that. And there are definitely people that are more comfortable just buying records online. But I really wanted to offer this experience of the store where you could come in and just sort of, feel like drunk on music, where you can come into an actual physical place, You know, no one bugs you. You put your head down, you look at the records, you want to, you know, put one on, go ahead. Well, the whole store will listen to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was important for me to offer a sort of a nice, welcoming, supportive, safe space for music lovers that were kind of interested in more than just what was being offered. I thought, you know, because I sort of created the store that I always wanted to go shop in this city.
Yeah.
Because I've been to record stores all over the world. Like I've been everywhere in Europe, you know, Spain, Italy, all over the States, and different sort of setups. And we took all these experiences and sort of blended it up. And I thought, you know, let's just make something really unique and cool. And yeah, I'm proud of it. We're really happy with how it's turned out. And we're actually still renovating right now. We're adding another whole back room
Oh, nice.
of stuff. So yeah, it'll be cool. Yeah, we haven't finished yet, but it'll be neat when we're done.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's really good to hear it. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, Osborne Village, for whatever reason, feels like it needs a record store. I don't know what that reason is, but I think it's because there's always been one there, at least one, right? And I mean, it's weird.
It's a center for music. Like, think of all the ghosts of concerts and shows that have been done in Osborne Village. And, you know, lately, it's been kind of sad. You know, you go down there's big holes in the ground where places used to be, or they're just weird sort of stuff that never existed before.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just sort of keeping that section of, you know, like the vibrant 90s kind of culture alive. You know, I guess saying vibrant 90s, if you're around in the 90s in Winnipeg, then you would have known what Osborne was like, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, the whole city was there half the time, just walking up and down the strip, buying stuff, eating food, shopping. So yeah, we really want to bring that back. And in like a side note of this, I just sort of I met the new Osborne biz director the other day, and she's got some really cool ideas. And I think the city's going to see some cool improvements and innovation in Osborne Village in the next year or so. Like she's got some really cool plans, and it sounds like it'll work out if she can make it happen. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's good to hear that, because I've often felt like I used to spend tons of time in the village, and lately it's almost been like a drive-through kind of area for me where I haven't really stopped often, because a lot of the reasons I went there are gone now. So it's nice to see that kind of idea of having foot traffic and having people, you know, going in to sit there for an hour and look at records and stuff. Like it's a concept again. It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think of sort of the way that vinyl is sort of considered in the overall culture right now? Because it definitely has had, over the past few years, a bit of a moment where it's become more mainstream, for sure, than it had been, you know, for about a 10-year period before that. And yet there's kind of like the two different audiences for it. There's the nerds who have been doing it for years, like, and I consider myself one of those too, who just, you know, has always been buying records and isn't going to stop. And then there's people who have sort of, not necessarily younger people who've caught onto it recently, and they're getting into it. And it's almost more of a it's not necessarily because they want to hear it in that format, it's because they're collecting, right? They're hooked on the idea of collecting the physical media. So what do you think is the future of records? I mean, I think there'll always be that first group who are not going to stop buying records ever, but as far as its actual like kind of cultural position right now, do you think it's going to continue to grow, or is it going to drop off again?
It's funny, I have these talks with my, you know, buddies of mine all the time. Yeah, like there's that famous sort of phrase that everyone air quotes, you know, vinyl's making a comeback.
Yeah.
But it never went away ever. You know, it's just sort of has newer audiences, right? Like every generation has a new pair of ears and eyes. Like people's children come in looking for records their dads and moms used to play them. Like our demographic goes everywhere from, like, you know, 12-year-old kids to, you know, 80-year-old ladies looking for Edith Piaf. So it's kind of cool to see sort of like, you know, the look on someone's face when they finally touch a Rubber Soul album or something for the first time, and they're like, oh, wow, I can't believe it, you know. So it's neat where you get to see that moment all the time, you know. Like, we've all had that moment where, you know, like, wow, Led Zeppelin 1, you know, just kicked my ass. And then, you see like a young high school kid coming in to get it. So those songs never change. They still have the same power and magic, right? It's just sort of, it goes through different stages. Like it'll show up in a movie or a commercial or something,
Yeah,
and then everyone kind of comes in looking for that one, or someone dies and they want that record all of a sudden. So it's an interesting kind of place to be when you're behind the counter, because yeah, you see like every walk of life wants some kind of music,
sure.
you know. So you get to sort of connect with them on that one sort of universal thing is music, right? Like we can all appreciate something that
Yeah,
someone else likes, even if wouldn't go and buy it. It's like you can talk for a few minutes about Elvis or whatever the hell it is. So it's fun. It's my dream job. But the future, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere at all. And there are some strange things happening right now where certain bands and record labels can't even get their records made for another few years.
yeah, it's crazy.
All these backlogs, and there's all these weird things happening with vinyl factories where there's only like certain factories on the planet that are allowed to produce the chemical because
Yeah,
it's such environmentally horrible. So there's all these like different things that go into it, and then Adele drops a record and she needs 20 million copies of
yeah, I
that
saw
record.
that. Yeah, yeah,
No one can have the record made for 2 years. But there's certain things are just getting more popular. Like Run the Jewels drops a record. Kids are waiting around the block to get it,
sure.
or Tyler the Creator or something. Newer new age hip hop is very, I don't call it new age hip hop, but new era hip
Newer,
hop
yeah, yeah,
is so hot. Like, it's like there's certain stuff. It's like that stuff, heavy metal,
yeah,
punk, that stuff's big in this city. But yeah, the future I think is just gonna keep going. I mean, a friend of mine works for Discogs. Shouts out to Bird of Prey, and he's got some interesting facts. Like the usership during the pandemic skyrocketed, like
I believe it.
millions of new users, right? So there's a definite hungry appetite out there for the physical form. You can't. There's. I always tell people, this is sort of like a sidebar,
Mhm.
but vinyl, listening to a record is like a ritual for your own self. No one
For sure.
else experience that moment where you're gonna, whatever the heck you're doing, you're washing the dishes, smoking a joint or whatever, you're just doing your thing, you want to listen to some music. You got to take time for yourself in that moment where you got to actually listen to it, put the needle on. It's like a whole thing. You don't just run
Yeah,
out the door and put your headphones on, right? So there's like this home based safety to it where that's where your collection is, that's where your record player is. And it's just sort of like a safety thing, I think, involved with it, or like a warm feeling. You
I think so.
get what you want, take it home, and that's your 10 minutes to just turn the rest of the world off, right? And I think because of that, that'll never, ever go away. The only reason I think records would kind of chill out is if they just stop making them,
Yeah,
like if they come out with a new something, whatever the next thing will be. But yeah, I just sort of seeing every entry point in collecting, whether you're just a kid getting into it or an old person trying to get their records back that they sold at a
yeah,
garage sale 40 years ago. Yeah, it's regenerational. Like it just keeps going. It's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do like what you said about it being a ritual kind of thing for sure, because I mean, you have to be personally involved in it. It's not like you can just press a button and it'll do it for you. There's a level of commitment to what you're listening to as well, right? Because you have to, you can't just hit skip to the next or shuffle or anything like that with a turntable. So you have to actually select the record you want deliberately and probably listen to it at least one side start to finish
Yeah.
before you switch it. So yeah, there's that level of you have to put thought into it, I guess, more so than just yelling at a Google Home thing to play music for you or pressing a button on Spotify, right?
Yeah. And it audibly sounds different.
So for
There's no,
sure, yeah, yeah,
and that I think does something to your brain. It's like, wow, this is like something else. Like
yeah,
this, it feels like it's right in front of you or something, or with you. When you're listening to digitally produced music, it's not the same at all. And anyone could tell you that. But
yeah, yeah,
I think that's part of the addiction for sure.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
and it is an addiction. Don't get me wrong. Like, I can tell you a lot of stories. I've seen people, go their whole lives, waste their lives away, end up divorced, nothing but their record collection and a mattress on the floor on the apartment, like, and so yeah, it's there. I mean, there's different ways to approach the addiction thing about it. There's a cool documentary called Vinyl, I think.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, and they just actually made part 2 of that, I think.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it has weird sort of connections with different sort of, like if anything in your life's going to shit, at least you still have your music collection.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's comforting. It's comforting to know you can go home and you have all this body of work that you've put together, over the decades and decades. Like, I was looking at a photo of my house like a decade ago, and my record collection there looks tiny. And I haven't actively felt like I was buying tons of records, but I've at least quadrupled it since then, just by going to stores and stuff, and buying things at shows and everything like that. And it's weird to think about that, because it's just kind of, I try to pare my record collection down too. I sell things and hand them off to friends and stuff after a little while to make sure I have space. But even that collection has grown way more than I would have ever imagined, just without thinking about it. And I think you're right. You get hooked into it, and you see stuff, and you want to take it home. You want to give it the attention it deserves, right? You
want to smell that stinky old record in your house.
For sure. You want a whole house full of stinky records. Yeah.
It's weird about that, where people sell parts of their collection to grow their collection. There's like weird sort of thing where, well, I mean, if you're savvy enough, like a lot of people don't care, right? Like some people, they won't spend more than $5 on a record or whatever. That's fine. But there's this sort of savvier group of collectors that, there was sort of like, well, when they say pare down, which I hear that a lot, they sell stuff and then they just rebuy stuff. So it's like this cool sort of thing that could feed itself if you're crafty enough. You know, like you could really upgrade your stuff in your record collection just by selling your lesser copies to someone else or on the internet or whatever.
And there's no end to it either, because you're never gonna have access to every record in existence, so you don't know what's out there. So you could find something tomorrow that is, without realizing it, like your dream record, and then the week after that you could find another one that beats that, right?
That's the craziest thing about it, is you're right. There's no end. It's like hard to even wrap your head around how many people made a record or an album, press it on vinyl, that you'll never even know about. There's like, it's like,
you can't know about it.
And I mean, Discogs is a cool way to sort of, and Instagram, right, where people sort of share their finds and put people on to other stuff. But there's really, that's sort of the romantic kind of mysterious thing about it, is like, you're just sort of, you don't know where the end point is in music, because there's hundreds of years worth of music out there on vinyl that you'll probably never even know about. But like I said lately, Instagram sure changed everything. Everything about the record game changed when Instagram vinyl communities started coming up, because you get your popular sort of content creators or whatever, just basically people taking pictures of the records and posting on the internet. So it's had a weird sort of side effect where everyone who has a phone or Instagram probably has a Discogs account too. Thousands of people. So they're, guy number one posts a picture, wow, okay, 300 people all of a sudden click want on that record. So it messes up the market. Well, not messes it, but it's always a dynamic market. It always changes, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. When you're ordering new vinyl, that's a set price point. It's like, okay, this whatever, Metallica records, $39.99 retail, and so the price you're buying it for, what you're going to sell it for. But when you're in the used game, the prices are not set at all. Like someone wants X amount of money for their records and someone doesn't care. So, and then all this information gets lumped into Discogs, and Discogs has an algorithm of, it bases the value of records on how many people want the item
Right.
and how much it ever sold for, and then they base it on the condition of the item.
Right. They give you the average prices it sold for and stuff over the years. Yeah, yeah.
And it's never solid, right? Like it's always dynamic and changing, which is a weird thing to do when you make a living doing this, because you have to get creative and you have to be just adaptive, and you have to have an open mind. Like you can't be like this sort of totalitarian sort of thing, and you have to end up usually selling all the best records you find.
Yeah.
Which sort of sucks, but I keep all the weird stuff that no one will want anyway. So
Well, until that one person comes in and wants all of it, then you're gonna have someone who asks you about something you've had in the back for 5 years or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Oops.
Have you what have you been? I know this has obviously been a huge focus for you. Like you said, you're in the store every day. You've been putting this together for years now. What about your own stuff as far as DJing and making music? Have you done any of that recently, or have you been kind of on hold?
Well, yeah, I chilled out on making, like I used to make a lot of beats, and I used to
Yeah.
DJ out publicly a lot. And the best times I was DJing were with the graffiti gallery, just laid back, sort of
Yeah.
no stress kind of background music stuff, which I loved. So, but no, I mean, just given over the last year or 2 years, no public DJing at all.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I've been making mixtapes and stuff the odd time. I have like a Mixcloud, but yeah, no, I haven't really been able to embrace any kind of creativity, just because running the business is, like I say, it's 24/7. Like
Yeah.
if I had a couple hours to sit down and make beats, something went wrong, or I broke my leg or something. It's just not in the cards right now. And there's just so many, there's so many talented musicians in the city, or like digital or beat makers and
Yeah.
producers, that I was like, man, I'm gonna throw in the towel right now. Maybe I'll do it again one day, but you got guys like DJ Cut Down, Crab Skull,
Yeah.
just like these guys make the beats I always like wanted to make. So it was like, why even bother at this point?
Just let them do it.
And but I do hook them up with records on the
Yeah.
regular.
Yeah, I believe it.
So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am still involved in some weird way, for sure.
Yeah, that's a cool way of being involved for sure. Is being the guy at the back end who's supplying the source material, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I wish. Yeah.
what's the best way for people to find the store? I mean, obviously going down on Osborne and then coming in and checking it out firsthand is probably the best idea. But to find you online and see what it's all about, what's the best option there?
We have a functioning website. It's Old Gold Vintage Vinyl, all spelled correctly, one word, .com. I've got a Discog store. You could get all the links through our Instagram. Also, Vintage Vinyl 204. You hit the little bio thing there.
Yeah.
And there's a link tree that'll send you everywhere. And yeah, we're always buying and trading records. If anyone listening out there is like, I gotta turn these records into some cash or some other records, we do that too. We love to work with the community.
Cool.
Because without them, you're basically nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's a couple ways there. Yeah, for sure.
And what's the address again? Just one more time, hammer that home.
We're at 187 Osborne Street. We're right next to Suko Thai, nice, beautiful Thai restaurant, and we're right across the street from Osborne Village Inc., if you know where that is.
Awesome.
Yeah, right in the closer to Confusion Corner than downtown, but it's a lovely little spot to the village that we hold down nicely, and yeah, we love it. We love being there. It's awesome. We love the neighborhood. It's fun.